All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And all right, let us move to Daniel 7 and Revelation, so we can, because this particular subject is taking up the rest of the church. The church is not at rest because of this subject. So, dreams and nightmares, etc. All right, we're looking at it, and we're gonna move on, and we're still looking at the concept and definition of nightmares from a biblical point of view, and we will move through this section, and we're not going to rush it up to get off it, because we need to understand these are things that are going to be we're going to be questioned upon and be brought to us, because when we go to court to defend the truth of God, the lawyer will cross-examine and ask you, how do you know that what Ellen G. White wrote was from God? How do you know that what the Bible says was from God? How did this information come from God? And they may very well use the history of Harold Camping to say that he studied the Bible and said the Lord said to him that Christ was going to come way back in 2011, May 21, and he didn't come. So how do you know that your religious position is correct? All of these things will be brought up against us, and they're going to be, every position that we hold is going to be questioned. And all I'm seeking to do is to bring to us an understanding and appreciation that what we may define as something is not necessarily what the Lord defines it as. If we're going to hold a position and say, well, this is it, we need to have a biblical basis for that position, because our positions are based upon thus saith the Lord. And many times, people take positions and say they are scriptural when asked to do so, they can't prove it. And statements are made and they become doctrine. When you ask people to prove it, they can't. The reason why we suffered the great disappointment in October 22, 1844 is because William Miller and an entire movement accepted a popular belief that the earth was a sanctuary, for which they had not one scripture text. A whole movement was disappointed, and Adventists are still today suffering the effects of that, because they accepted the popular belief held by the world that the earth was the sanctuary. And there was no scripture then, and there's no scripture now to prove that the earth was a sanctuary. But a whole movement, under the direction of the Spirit of God, which means at some point in time, they rejected God's directives that that was not so. Because the Spirit of the Lord would never tell them that the earth is a sanctuary, and it is not the sanctuary. The sanctuary that the Lord was referring to was the sanctuary in heaven. And we can go along comfortable, believing that something is so because it has been said or taught for years, without having any scripture basis for it. And if we get questioned during the crisis, and we can't defend our position, our faith is going to be severely tested. No, during the crisis, there's no time to repent. After that time, there's no margin forever for recovery. The disciples could recover because Christ is going to be raised, and the work would go on. Pardon? The sacrifice was offered in the outer court, and the sanctuary has its two apartments. Christ ascended to heaven in Hebrews and went into the holy place. And he moved to the most holy place in 1844. You can prove that he went to the holy place in Hebrews, and 8:1 and 2 in Hebrews 6. And you can also prove that he was in the holy place in Revelation chapter 1 and verse chapter 4, where it shows that there was a door in heaven, and it was seen 7 lamps of fire burning. So you know that he went to the holy place, because that is the apartment that had in the 7-branch candlestick. And Revelation 11:19 proves that he moved to the second apartment, because it was open and they was seeing the ark of his testament. So if the sanctuary is in heaven, apartment 1 and apartment 2, sacrifice was offered in the courtyard. Where did Christ offer his sacrifice? On planet earth. The courtyard is where it is, because the sanctuary is in heaven, the courtyard is where the sacrifice was offered. It was offered on planet earth.
Also, another part of the sanctuary that's considered is where the tent was within the courtyard, but outside of the courtyard there was a tent that was pitched. So within that tent or that area, God encamped or dwelled with his people. Well, more so in the most holy place, but there's also a part outside.
There was a courtyard for that.
Right.
Outside of that. All right, we're going to go to Daniel 7. We're still looking at the definition of nightmares, and we're looking at the biblical standard, and we'll see why the Lord uses, quote unquote, these nightmares as we would term them. In reference to him being in what? To an extent, but this is primarily outside of the gate of Jerusalem, because if he had been in Jerusalem, people might believe that salvation was only for the Jews. So he came for all mankind, so he was outside of the city, and all the sacrifices were to be outside.
Yeah, okay, that's something we were studying the commentary on that. And when it was that he was crucified outside, where the common criminal and other people was. And then someone asked the question if they had other place that they crucified, other people were put to death or beside, and they were giving all the different comments. Why was he crucified outside the gate for, where the common criminal? Some said that, they put him to it insane, everybody, as they come upon that, they were wondering why he was crucified outside the court where all the other common criminals, because the commentary said
He died for the common criminal. He was in the position of the lowest person on the planet, because if he was born in a palace, poor people would be despairing of hope because he didn't come from me. And if he had died in a, how should I say, more acceptable form, a quick, merciful death, beheaded. Paul was beheaded. End of story. Alright? You put down your head on the block, head gone. That's it. But for Christ, it was a long, crucifixion was a torturous, long, slow, lingering death. Beaten, and then you hung up. And if you didn't die quick enough, they break your legs and start to speed up the process. When they came and found that Jesus was already dead, they didn't believe it. The pilot said, no, that ain't true. Bring me the centurion and let me get a word from it. Dead already. Crucifixion was not designed to be a quick death. It was to be a long, slow, lingering, torturous death. Because and this happened at that time, because that was the time of the earth came at the point when the world was at its lowest and needed to be redeemed. God sent him when the world was at its lowest point. The world was really truly crying out for the Redeemer. The world called for the Redeemer because it needed that. Otherwise, it was going to be all up.
So what I was trying to say, he had two different places, one for the common criminal and one for...
No, crucifixion was for the worst of criminals. John was beheaded. John was not regarded as a common criminal, but his tormentor, Salome, requested his head on a plate. So John was not regarded as a criminal. He just, the next year, you have to look at just inherited lifestyle. He was in prison because she this man coming from you. Money, we got named to do. You see the document, and he talking about $130. And she wanted him killed, but he didn't have any. He can't move against that one. So he made the silly vow, and then the request came, and he also said he was not regarded as a criminal. He died at the when he came before. There were other means of execution. Crucifixion might be regarded as the worst criminal.
suffering was, because you always have people, even though Christ went through what he went through, you always have people saying, oh, well, it wasn't so bad. Someone's bound.
and 7, it said, verse 2, it said, he saw in my vision, and behold, the 4 wings of the heavens stood upon a great sea. And the sea is water, and the water represents what? Sound. Babylon and its people were represented as waters coming up, and going over all its banks. So out of the commotion and strife of the different nations, they would rise 4 rulers, leaders, and kings. They're represented by beasts because that is power. They take over. And you know that the lion is the king of beasts. The top predator for Babylon would be top predator number 1 nation, and all the other nations were conquered by him. By the time he got to Jerusalem, his triumph was complete. He was ruling the world. Now, the lion is a predator, and it's 4-legged, and it does not have wings. You don't see a lion with wings, no way in nature. Division to represent the speed at which Babylon would conquer the world. And he did it in a short period of time. Alright? He did it in a short period of time to conquer the world. Now, the next beast, verse 4, and beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet of the man, and the man's heart was given to it. All of that had to do with Nebuchadnezzar's rise and fall. He thought that he was number 1, and this is great Babylon that I have built, and his heart was lifted up. The Lord said, all right, hold up the kingdom. Spirit withdrew, and his mind left him. He was taken down from being the God he thought he was to be only a man, and he humbled himself. But it represented primarily Babylon. Verse 5, and behold another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised itself up on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. Now the bear is also a predator, but the bear is the largest omnivore in the animal kingdom. A bear is primarily vegetarian. Berries, nuts, grass. But it will not pass up an opportunity to eat fish or red meat. Right? If a bear catches a deer or anything around, it will kill it and eat it. Or a human being for that matter. So it is a fit representation of a kingdom that has 2 types of people in it. Medes and Persians. Babylon was just Babylon. Media-Persia was composed of 2 different types of people. The Medes and the Persians, fitly represented by a bear that is an omnivore as a carnivore. It's primarily vegetarian. Nuts, berries, seeds, etc. But it will eat fish and it will eat red meat if the opportunity presents itself. Yes, primarily we were vegetarian, but we diverted this started. Meat, yes. We are some dark carnivores too, because we eat more. Human beings eat more animals than any other thing on the planet. Calculate the amount of chickens and beef and lamb that human beings kill on an annual basis is amazing. Huh? Herbivore. Herbivores are animals that only eat grass. And you get, we should never call animals animals. There's herbivore, carnivore, omnivore, and human beings are omnivore. Eat everything. Human beings eat everything on the planet. From the sea, from the air, from the land, everything we can put our hands on, we eat. My sister loves the Food Network. And there's a guy on there that, what's the name of the program? What's the name of the? Yes, she loves the Food Network. There's a guy on there that eats. He eats all, he calls strange foods or something. The guy eats anything.
Yeah.
Bizarre foods, thank you. The guys make animals look tame. Huh? Zimmerman? What's the name again, Sister? Bizarre food. Human beings. No wonder they have strange diseases on the planet and affect human beings, but we didn't think that we were not designed to eat. So we have everything. everything bizarre. The guy eats anything. Enough. These are now when the Lord portrays it in these things, can you call it anything else but quote unquote a nightmare? But that is the behavior. Alright? But the biblical definition of it, what the Lord has revealed, this is how these kingdoms come to the ascendancy by devouring each other. It is not God's will, and it's not his order, but this is how human beings behave. And the best description the Lord could use to describe it is by using carnivores that rise up and destroy each other. Now after you have perverted your taste buds to eat everything you shouldn't eat, you can't like what you're supposed to eat. No, his taste buds have been perverted, so you cannot eat that which you're supposed to eat. Alright? He would need a complete revival to be born again, and then a total reformation to be turned around as far as culinary taste is concerned. I don't want to know what he has in his stomach. Alright, so the bear, Media Persia, is 2 in 1, omnivore. And Media Persia was 2 empires, Medes and Persians. So the Lord is using the best representation to portray the kingdoms of this world. And it rise up on one side, so which was higher of the two? It says in Daniel 8 that the higher came up last, so that the Medes, the Median took the kingdom, but Cyrus, the general of the Persians, took over, and the Persians became dominant in that empire. So he was raised up on one side. Right, he was the general. What do 3 words represent? 3 nations that it had to uproot before it get to Babylon. Can you tell me where they are? Babylon is the last. Assyria is Babylon. Babylon is the last. Egypt. Libya is the modern translation of it. Alright? Libya is the modern translation. So in coming up towards Babylon to get it, it had to overcome those kingdoms. And when it got to Babylon, then it would be number 1.
There's different interpretations, because I've heard it that way as well as I've heard that there were 3 wars, significant wars that I can't remember which wars, but that the 3 ribs in the mouth.
No, the 3 ribs represent the 3 kingdoms that it had to overcome in order to get to Babylon, which was number 1. So if you want to be number 1, who do you have to take down from number 1 position? Whoever is up top there. And Babylon was the ruling empire of the world, so in coming up there, it would have to take them to get to Babylon to become number 1. So the 3 ribs represent the 3 nations that it had to conquer to get to the top. And then Babylon. Yeah, you have to get to the top, you have to take down Babylon. Babylon is number 1. And once you see ribs in the mouth, you know that the animal dead. Alright, if you got the ribs in your mouth, you know that the animal dead. No. So is that saying to me that we need to go through Daniel again? Not no though. Back to Daniel 7, not no. Verse 7. Verse 6. And after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now a leopard is a carnivore, and it's a quadruped, 4-legged animal. It's up in the rank. The only thing that would scare a leopard away would be a lion. On the Serengeti National Park, the lion is the top. Hyenas are up there because they come in clans. Hyenas very seldom move single. And when they come in a clan and big enough, they even run off lions off to kill when there are enough hyenas to run them away. But the leopard is the top predator, and it is very strong. Leopard is very strong. It can kill a gazelle and take it up in a tree equivalent to its weight. And it has to do that because if the lion comes, it's going to get run off right behind you. Come with the whole clan, it will get run off. So it takes a spray up in the tree and hang it over them, and you can eat it at leisure and come back later on. So it is in the top 4 of top predators on this earth. Now, a leopard has 4 legs, 1 head, 1 tail. In Daniel's vision, it has 4 wings and 4 heads. This is not normal. This is out of the norm. All right, this will be regarded as nightmarish. But the Lord is revealing to us what is happening, because the leopard represents Greece, and Alexander the Great took it to the top. But after his death, his 4 generals, all right, poisoned his son and divided the empire among themselves. And the 4 wings represent the speed at which, because by age, what age Alexander had reached the top of conquer the world? 32 going to 33. He had conquered the world. Now, Obama is how old? 50, 51. Well, 50 now. Became president of the United States at what age? Young age. One of the youngest presidents to be ever inaugurated in America. That is an achievement. One of the youngest presidents to be ever inaugurated in the state. You've achieved. Hereafter for him, what is your left? What is left for him after presidency? The Lord God give you a vision. Let him say, listen, look, there's another kingdom coming here, so you can get a part of it, but you can't be president of it. So this is where Alexander had reached by age 33. He had conquered the world. Sitting down, laying down at night with the fellows celebrating and drinking himself right into a drunken stupor. Probably died of cirrhosis of the liver. They wouldn't have a definition for it then, but now we can take up the liver and examine it. Liver burn out. And the general said, well, it was a food. And your kingdom in left here, so you only got one son, kill him, and divide it between the 4 of them. There's the four heads of that empire. It would not be left to his posterity, as Gabriel explained in Daniel chapter 8. Cassandra, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, Seleucus, not just Seleucus. Alright, those are the 4 generals. What's wrong with the kid? You didn't give me a problem? I see she's trying to write them, but they're going off too fast. Cassandra? Brother Stefan, give her that information there. You move on. He dealing with nightmares. Right? It's 5 to 6. Back to Daniel 7. That is homework. Y'all, we have gone through Daniel at least. And this movie, how many times is this, Mark? Give her those names there. Alright, so Daniel 7 verse 7 out. And after this I saw the night vision, and behold, 4 beasts, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. He devoured and broke in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now, I want you to give me a scripture text or reference to identify the previous 3 animals. A lion. Give me a scripture text or reference to identify these previous three animals in the Bible period. No, don't deal with Daniel. Come before Daniel. Any story, Bible story, related to any of these previous three animals? You know, but you don't remember? Nathaniel, tell me a Bible story involving a lion. Tell me a Bible story involving a lion. David said he was keeping the sheep, and a lion came and took a lamb and he went after it. Samson met the lion and killed it. David had a bear come and take one of the lambs, he went after it as well and took the lamb or the kid out of his mouth. Some young children that were raised between the experience between Israel and the other nation, get up some children and they raised up and they was mocking Elijah, mocking his translation and said, "Go up, thou boy." Elisha was walking. No, it's a serious thing when parents to train the children. What had happened was a very significant work. The Lord translated Elijah, and it was known in Israel, and people were making light of it, and the children grew up hearing it. And so when Elisha passed, they would say, "Go up, thou bald head," "Go up, thou bald head," meaning get translated. And their behavior, they would have passed beyond childhood and stuff, should have been better off based on the parents having trained and disciplined and taught them about the seriousness of the work of God and the seriousness of the prophet. And it says, the Bible says he turned around and cursed them. I mean, behave bad because the prophets can't behave bad on the Lord. But he simply would have warned them, and their behavior would have reached the point where it separated them from the Lord. And they came forth 2 she-bears and tear 40 and 2 of them. 40 and 2 of them. Now, without going into too far, remember when under Elijah's reign, the drought would have devastated the land for 3.5 years. Whenever a drought is in the land, the herbivores will suffer severely, the carnivores will multiply. Because the less herbs there are for the animals to eat, the weaker they become, the better the carnivores will multiply, because they can catch them easier and the carnivores will multiply. So you have 2 she-bears. After the drought of Elijah, and Elisha is translated, the carnivores would have multiplied significantly because the give me about a reference to a leopard. Sitting down there, y'all don't know the scripture said.
But is it a literal thing, or can it be a leopard can't change its spots?
That is a reference to leopard. I said any scripture reference.
Oh, because you didn't say which context. So I'm thinking the whole Bible.
I asked for a scripture reference with these animals that are mentioned before Daniel. The Lord said, "Can a leopard change his spots, or the Ethiopian his skin?" So all I'm trying to establish is that these 3 animals are animals that Daniel and the children of Israel would be familiar with. Undescribable beast. No, that don't fit him. Yeah, he don't fit him. He can be described easily. All of this is why it is used like that. All right? You look at that and look through next week when we get to that. Indeed, is how it parallels with it. Now, so in Daniel, the Lord has to create an image or beast to represent the Roman Empire, because there's nothing in nature to represent it. Even those things that are in nature that they're familiar with, he had to modify them in the dream to give an accurate description. You have to modify the lion with giving it wings. Modify the bear. It has the ribs in the moving up on one side. The bear normally, if a bear stands up on its hind feet, it stays up upright. And I think the polar bear is the largest land carnivore. Can go up as much as if it stands on its hind legs, as much as between 10, 9, and 11 feet, depending on its physical condition, if it's well fed, and can weigh up to 1,700 pounds. A polar bear is something you don't want to meet at any time. Not polar bear, the brown bear would do, the black bear would do that, yeah, black bear and the grizzly bear. No, he's always in the forest, in region. Oh yes, she went to take a picture. She went close, and the bear reached out and grabbed her and was pulling her.
No, she willingly jumped in.
No, she went close to take the picture. She went too close. So there's a cage and there's a moat, so you don't go close. How people get to so she went over, and the bear had her pulled like that, and they were beating it and hitting it, and he wouldn't let go because he had a reeling. He wasn't about to let go. He had to come down and end up shooting it to get her out of there. His paw had her leg just draw. He was going to pull her right through. And that would be his breakfast. Quite sure she didn't want them to do nothing more to do with bears again.
On the internet, they have pictures of some, and I can't believe how people do this. They go to parts of, where the lions are, and one guy
Safari.
literally, he left his vehicle. His child was in the vehicle. Went to take a picture of the lion. The lion, he has it on YouTube. It mauls him. The baby's in the car crying. My heart was just, the man was that stupid to go out and take picture, and the lion was just like 1, 2, 3.
People need to learn.
No, this man had his children in the car. You hear the babies crying, oh, daddy, daddy. Yes. He went
People
to take a picture thinking the
need to
lion
learn.
was going to stay there watching.
Why would you want to think that? Because people think that you can take, I guess because you grew up with a teddy bear, and you hold up and cover it up, and think that is a teddy bear. It's a teddy bear that is made of fur, but the one outside is a sinner, and is an omnivore, and if it gets hungry, there is no law in his mind saying, thou shalt not kill. It has two things in mind, survival, and that's by eating anything that it can catch, it will eat. And people need to keep that in mind. Human beings take it that animals, because we can train them, training it has not converted it. In order for it to be saved, the Lord says when He makes things new, the lion and the lamb will learn together because there will be a new order of creature. They will be operated by the divine principles, so the lamb will not be seen as breakfast by the lion. But right now, in this simple condition, we cannot and should not be taking those chances. If you want to go to the Bronx Zoo, they're separated. If you want to watch it on the Discovery Channel, you sit down in the comfort of your home. Don't go close to it. It's an animal, and it's called animals for a reason. Brother Ricky. No. Animals will cease to be. In order for you to be in the kingdom, you have to develop divine character through receiving the divine nature, and that is not a privilege that is given to animals. So God will make new creation, and they should not take the text literally because there are not going to be any old men, and nobody is going to be dying. So they take that text literally and say, there are not going to be any old men. We are not going to get old again. Old age is the result of the sin problem and the generation after the flood evil. And there's not going to be any dying again. Good thing. We deal with the truth later on. Sure. Yes. 47680. It's the longest reign of the empires, and that's why it is in the legs. You know, your legs are the longest part of the human body. it was divided then into the 10 divisions of the Roman Empire when it collapsed. Remember the 10 toes and the 10 horns? The empire itself collapsed, and then those 10 divisions came out. And out of them, remember the little horn would pluck up 3 horns. What were the 3 nations that came up? The Vandals, the Heruli, the Ostrogoths. In coming to ascendancy to pull up those 3 and then go up to establish the papacy. The papacy would have gotten full authority by 538, and it went on to reign from there all the way down to 1798.
So it's basically what is now the European Union.
Yes,
Spain,
Germany,
Hungary.
all those things, but they will not cleave to one another. The scriptures here because they can't be your unity without the Spirit of God.
And you have to listen to them. Sometimes they come on C-SPAN, and they cannot agree on one thing.
It's like you're talking to 3, 4, 5, 6, well, literally different languages, but I'm just saying they are not in any, when you listen to C-SPAN and you're American, the whatever interchange between the different governments. But when the European Union is completely conflictual, and it's terrible.
They're all sinners, and the basic principle operating in all of them is self, and self is always striving for the ascendancy. So wherever you find it, there will always be that contention. Even among the disciples, before they were fully converted and surrendered, there was still a strive of who should be first. So in the European Union, everybody is going to be striving to be first. And now the collapse of the Greek economy is threatening to pull down all the rest because they're in a union together. And if you don't support all, one weak link, your chain is as strong as its weakest link. If the Greek economy collapses fully, it's going to put a strain on the rest, so they're at loggerheads whether or not to put more money into the Greek economy and shore it up or let it collapse. If it collapses, it's going to have a domino effect. It's going to pull down the whole European Union. And to keep pumping money into this dead economy, you also run the risk of pulling it down because they will be taking in more than they can supply because they have their own economies to take care of.
And wasn't it France that put Rome back, gave Italy back there, after Berthier took the Pope into captivity? France, to some extent, just kind of gave them back their independence.
Yeah, but they had already lost their power, so even more use. Brother Ricky. No. That is in terms of the American symbol itself. If you're dealing with prophecy, in Revelation 30 is the lamb like beast. No. Yes, and a peaceful nothing but this. And yeah, now in the prophecy, when we saw in Daniel 7, the wind strove upon the great sea, and that is sea represents people, water, multitude, nation, tongue. Speaking of America, where did it rise up out of the sea? Land, vast empty space, and as concerning America, the American continent, when you only had Indian tribes here, when you look at this from a prophetic, biblical point of view, this would have been a vast empty land because you only have the Indian tribes. Even now as it is, the population of America is over 300 million, and there's still vast expanses of America that is empty. Vast, because we were going to Idaho, you drive through Montana, 70, 80 miles an hour, you don't see a house. Vast empty land, even though the population is 300 million, it is still largely an empty land. Still largely. So the prophecy shows that this nation, this beast, rising up over land, empty, from not out of the strife of nations and people to produce an empire, but others leaving there and coming here to have a good government on a new order. All right, so Daniel 7, verse 8, finishing up that reading. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. That means it takes them up completely. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Now, you want anything worse than a nightmare than this? A beast with 10 horns, and then another horn came up and pulled up 3, and then it got eyes and a mouth and it started talking. You're glad to wake up. And he wakes up now and ponders what does all this mean. According, that is correct. In a way, if you have a dream, and some dreams are so intense, it feels like life. It feels like real life when you wake up. It's not a dream. Wow, it was so real and like life. These were clear to him because the Lord wanted him to record them because they have bearing on the work of God and on the history of mankind. The remaining of Daniel 7, the angel Gabriel explains what it means. Now verses 9 to 13 deals with the judgment scene. We're not going to deal with that now. And verse 15. Daniel 9 to 14 deals with the judgment scene. And verse 15 onward, Gabriel begins to explain, so we can just explain a little bit that this quote-unquote nightmare is a prophecy of God giving light and truth to his people to know what the future holds. Verse 15, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit. Sister Robert said, he was glad to wake up. In the midst of my body and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this, so he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. Alright, so the Lord uses a beast to represent these empires of the world because that is how they operate. Jesus could find nothing in nature, he says, wherewith shall I liken the kingdom of heaven? He could find nothing because these kingdoms do not actually represent the kingdom of God, and God's kingdom does not behave like these beasts of world. Yes.
To some extent, could you say also that Caesar knew and understood more about the kingdom of God than even some of the Jews, the Pharisees, because he knew that the kingdom was not of this earth. When he found that Christ was, they brought him to be, crucified and whatever, he had no cause of action. He said,
Pilate?
No, not, was it Pilate?
Pilate is the one who washed his hands. Pilate is the one who washed his hands.
Yeah, Pilate, that he had no cause of action. So he understood even more than the kingdom of God to the extent than even the Pharisees and Sadducees or whatever.
The most ignorant person is the willingly ignorant.
Yeah.
Alright? The most ignorant person is the willingly ignorant because that's why you have in this world is in such serious condition because it does not know, but it believes and claims to know. And so you have a hard time trying to teach. Okay? If you come to a child who knows he does not know, you can teach him quite easily. But when you come to an adult who says they know, and there was a saying in Barbados that you all have wood-doves in most Caribbean countries, right? A wood-dove. Turtle dove. You know what a dove is?
Yeah.
For a minute I thought it was an American congregation. Dove, we call it a wood dove. Right. I use the word dove so you all can identify. Now the dove's nest is just cup-shaped and open. Lays its eggs and sits there. The blackbird, its nest is complete and has a little hole to go in. The sparrow, its nest is complete, has a little hole to go in. All the robins, their nest is complete and they go right inside. Right. And the story in Barbados was that the blackbird was teaching the dove how to make a nest. And when he got halfway, the dove said, I know. And so the blackbird left off teaching him, and he could not finish, so his nest is only halfway. He stopped right there, so he could never complete the nest, so when it rains, he gets wet all the time. Complete. And they go inside and they shelter it. But the dove's nest is open and it sits there, the eggs are there, and it sits exposed to the elements. The blackbird was teaching it, and he said, I got halfway. I know. So the bird left off teaching it, and he could never finish his nest, so he gets soaked every time the rain falls. Pardon? I can never get it done. You understand? Because he knew it. That's the problem with ladies here. We know everything, and so you can't teach them anything. There are people like that. You're trying to teach them, I know. You leave them there, you can never get it completed. Alright, back to Daniel 7 and finish up. Now, Gabriel is explaining now from verse 17. Verse 18. But the saying to the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and even forever and ever. And he goes straight to verse 19. Bypassing the other three beasts, he goes straight to the dreadful beast. Verse 19. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth was iron, and his nails of brass which devoured and break in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. Daniel was not too much concerned with the lion, the bear, and the leopard because they were familiar to him. Alright, but this, I've never seen anything like this. What does this really mean? And so Gabriel goes right into making him understand. Verse 10. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up before whom three fell, and even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, and whose look was more stout than his fellow. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and the judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, listen now, this Gabriel explaining. The fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. That's Rome. The whole earth is martial. It's pagan Rome, mostly pagan Rome, Revelation 30. And this is the kingdom that was ruling at the time when Christ came. Alright? Ruling when Christ understood all these prophecies. And he was not the least bit concerned about Rome because he knows that the kingdom belongs to God and his people. They will take the kingdom in the end. Verse 24. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall rise, and another shall rise after them. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times, and the dividing of time. All kinds of things he would change. Times and laws. They tried to change the Sabbath from 4th day to 1st day. All kinds of things they would change. The Roman system of things would be different, but God would still maintain his truth, right truth. Verse 26. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy unto the end. And the kingdom, and the dominion, and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven, shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much trouble me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. Now, if you think that you have a nightmare, don't assume that it comes from Eden Lake or from Satan. Ask yourself if the Lord is not saying something to you, because he had to create scenarios to give to Daniel information concerning the kingdoms of this world. And he had to do things that you don't see. He had to add to animals things that they don't naturally have to give the message, which would be the equivalent of what we would call a nightmare. But Daniel had no such notions about nightmares. It is a vision from the Lord, and he wanted to understand what it means. It is information concerning the work of God, as well as concerning the kingdoms of this world. And listen, kingdoms are given attention in the Word of God when they have an impact upon God's work and his people. Empires that don't have a... Babylon had an impact. They would take Israel into captivity. Medo-Persia had an impact because they would deliver them from the captivity. How much impact did Greece have concerning the work of God? Very little. And so Greece is not mentioned in any great detail within the scriptures. The next that would have a great impact would be Rome, and the attention is switched to Rome. And a lot of details is given of it because during the reign of Rome, Christ would come and all these things would go down. The work of God would begin and go. But information is given about Greece as an empire, and the Lord would unfold in the details and information to keep the continuity of the truth. But those kingdoms that would have a greater impact on God's work, they are given greater information in the scriptures. Babylon, top of the line, and it has its entire application.
During certain parts of, like I know Daniel repeats a lot, but why would you say that he, and I say Gabriel when I say he, they start with Medo-Persia in certain chapters, I think like 10 and 11.
From it.
Instead of starting from Babylon, they start from Medo-Persia. opposed to starting with Babylon.
In chapter 8, Daniel, now, the chapters are not given in sequence of events. Alright? Because in chapter 5 is when Media Persia took over. But the vision of chapter 7 was given in the first year of Belshazzar. Alright? The vision of chapter 7 was given in the first year of Belshazzar. So Babylon is still reigning. The vision of chapter 8 was given in the third year of the reign of Belshazzar. And in chapter 8, Babylon is not mentioned because Belshazzar is going to close probation for Babylon. Alright, Belshazzar's sin is going to close probation, and the rest is going to take the king. The problem is solved. If he's gone and killed her, he being in 7 days and he being free, in 7 days he being jailed for the rest of his life for having taken 11. That was not his decision. Not that anybody has the right to take any life for that matter. But all it is that the Spirit of God is reaching him the best way he can, and that person had an influence on his life because he trained him. And the Lord is working out through this. The Lord will get him to see he's speaking to him, listen. And it will take time for the Lord to be able to deliver him from the beliefs that he has. But the Lord reached him where he was. Because you can't tell me that Satan gave him that dream. And you can't tell me that he came through it by himself. It is clearly that it is a message given to him by the Lord through a person that he would more listen to than anybody else. I did not raise you to operate this way. Give it a week and the problem will be solved. No. No. It is given information. And even if the Lord, now, if he gives it to one of us who are here in present truth, he should not have to do that, but some of us still hold on to these things, you know. It takes time for us to be delivered from a lot of things that we grew up with. We say that we've given it up until we find ourselves in a crunch. And you'll find people still resorting back to these things. These are things that we are to be completely free from. He does not have this light and information, and God reached him where he is to give him a message. And now that he saw it come to pass, I don't think you can convince him that that was from the devil, nor from himself. But if he's going to give himself a dream to say in 7 days she's gone, you don't have to kill her. You don't want her to give yourself a dream, you know it. That person had an influence upon his life, and he would be more inclined to listen to that person than anybody else. Good. And the deeper we look, the more we're going to find. So we're going to come to those interpretations and difficult statements in a couple of weeks. And remember this: though God is not responsible for sin, his interest or his continuance, although it says sometimes the Lord will allow a chain of circumstances to develop and punish sin with sin. All right? God will allow a chain of circumstances to develop and punish sin with sin, although God is not responsible for and has nothing to do with sin. He has to work where we are and through culture at times to get us information. Sister Donna, Brother Stefan? Sister Donna? No, it's not deadly because the Lord will reach us the best way possible. And he will have to at times give us information outside of his divine will. You know that there's the permissive will of God? Now, was it God's will for Israel to be eating certain things? No. But he gave Moses information. Tell the children of Israel, if you're going to eat flesh, this is what you're to eat. And you will meet Adventists today who know what you have mentioned, and they will argue with you to the second coming of Jesus. The Bible says, I can eat this. That was God's permissive will, but that is not to be understood as his ideal will and what we are to be defending. You can state it in the truth because it's in the word because it is there. It's a part of truth. But that is not for us to say that that is God's will for them at that point in time. It was not his will for them to have a king. But did he give them permission? And did he anoint the first two kings? And people will argue that was God's will and they had a king. He gave us, those who under it, a president. And if you ever speak anything against the president, you are disobeying Ellen White. You are against the prophet. We are the people of God. This is God's organization. If you're not under it, you're lost. All right. Okay. Is it God's will for that?
It was never his will for sin and killing.
Sister Roberts.
I was just trying to say how hard it will be to convince this guy that had that dream about his grandfather, how hard it will be to convince him that the dead know not anything. And, after, a while in the future then, if somebody comes to him with that scripture text, how hard it will be for him to accept that.
That is why if you understand it and can explain it to the person from a scriptural basis that only God has the ability, and then you can explain to them the state of the dead, it will be easier for him to accept. But if you keep fishing and say it can come from the devil, you leave him in more trouble than if you tell him there's only one source of it. He will be questioning whether or not it is from the devil, or it's from the Lord, or he got it from myself. Once you establish the fact there's only one person that can read the mind, and that is God, when you teach him the state of the dead truth, it will be easy for him to understand. But if we are fishing, that is what is going to create problems. All right, Sister Donna, Brother Stefan, we're going to close this 6:20. when he comes to a point, the Lord will no longer have to use that method or that person. He will learn then that you need to be, as an individual now, take control of your life and make decisions under God. And so the Lord will not have to be giving you information from your grandfather. You're now on your own mind. What he has taught you is to become principles in your life. You are to be living by instead of operating by that. Because you are about to transgress the law of God and to take a life that you should not be thinking. The commandment says you, thou shalt not kill. That word. When you turn from that, the Lord can meet you where he wants you to be. In due course of time, you can teach him the truth, and the Lord will deliver him from that. But God has to meet us where we are to bring us to where we need to be. All of us had our concept about God's character. Did we not? Yes. And we should have been delivered from that, and the Lord has taken us on to go from the point where we say God does not destroy to the point where we can understand that he cannot nature, character, and government. Brother Stephen.
I remember about 3 or 4 years ago when Sister Andrea Grace passed away. And I remember the night before she passed, I remember receiving a dream. And in the dream, I was talking to Holford. And I'm like, and then when I kept myself in the dream, I'm like, wait, Holford is dead. And then when I woke up, then I got the call from Mother and told me that Andrea was dead. So it was at the church, I was talking to him. So it was kind of saying to me, someone from the church has died.
Go on. No. As long as we keep on with certain things, it makes it a lot more difficult for the Spirit of God to communicate to us information. We need to get away from the paranoia and the airy-fairy thing to understand that the divine communication network is real. All right? It is real and more tangible than we imagine. But the problem with us is we have relegated it to spiritualism. We have to be free from that because we're told that the living testimony will be revived. And don't interpret that to mean that LG wasn't get resurrected. The living testimony, but the Lord will go back to when his people come to an understanding of it, giving us more information as we need it. We're going to need it for the crisis. No, the person saw a departed relative in the dream.
That's not spiritualism.
But a person can become person can see it that way because the Bible says the dead know not anything. And there's a difference between you getting it in a dream and you going trying to raise up the person.
If you're awake and you see, some people have seen people that
Formed,
come
etc.,
back.
etc.
And the example that Sister White uses is the Fox sisters. In upstate New York.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of it.
And she was told in her experience, she said, that was Satan. So you're alive when the person comes to you. In a dream, that's a dream.
Yes, but it is still, to a certain extent, communicating, so to speak, with the person that is departed because the person's already dead. Not that you are my people. We have to recognize that this God invented communication. God invented the ear, and He invented the eye. And He can't ever, the closer we are to Him, the easier it is for Him to give us information. But if we keep being hung up, and a part of our problem is we grew up in the Caribbean where witchcraft, phobia, and all these things is right. So we grew up with all of that around us, and we know how to be delivered from all of that rubbish. And the count. Regarding these things. Again, they try to fill it by money, fame, drugs, alcohol, everything else, partying, everything else except Christ. Now listen, the void in our soul is Christ shaped. And the only void that can fill it is Christ. And other people people like that try to fill it with fame, riches, cars, clothes, jewelry, everything. And in the end, the statement from the Spirit of the Lord is her life was empty. You supposed to know it. One of you may need to say that to somebody. Somebody close to you. Brother Ricky. That is vultures for those of you who don't know. No, and it might simply be that John Brown's time had come. Yeah, if you see a John Crow as a vulture, what is a vulture? A vulture that is a bird that eats the dead. All right, death is coming for John Brown. Unless there's a literal John Brown in Barbados, John Brown is a general term because John is a very popular name. All right, could be a general term, or it could be specifically somebody whose name was John Brown.
John Brown is like John Doe.
Well, John Brown
Yes.
was the actual person.
They're coming from him.
But no, but
When they
John,
call your name, you can get away.
but no, John Brown was the actual person in American history. He was an abolitionist, a white abolitionist who was he believed firmly that blacks should not be enslaved, and he went about violent means to try to help free the slaves. And that was what resulted in him being executed back in 1869.
All right, but you can get these things now. Let me give you this clause. In was it 92? Myself, Brother Leach, his wife, and Brother Dwayne went to Idaho, and the night before, his wife had this dream that she saw two ants walking with an egg over their head, and then it cracked and out flew a vulture. The next day, we went down to the lake, and myself and Brother Dwayne got into that canoe, went across the lake. He got up and looked around and capsized, and that's the closest I came to that. Spent 35 minutes in that water. It was about 45 degrees, and you know yours in a canoe in the lake. And you know yours truly does not have any insulation on his body to keep anymore. But Brother Dwayne is a little chubby fella, so he had some insulation to keep. I can swim, yeah, but I didn't want to leave him. And I expended all of my skill and all of my energy trying to right that canoe. The last thing we did, I told him, just put the two oars to the front here and there, so you can have it up and get it flipped over with as minimal amount of water as possible. And it didn't succeed, so we just had to resign our will to the Lord, to take care of that. And they would have called, and our kind of rescue team came for us and stuff. We were taken out of that. And when we got home tonight, and she told us the dream later on. The two ants were us, and the egg was the canoe. And when the egg cracked, out came a vulture, which is representative of what? Death. And it's the closest that yours truly came to dying. The closest that I've ever come to dying. Well, my work was not yet finished, right? The Lord preserved it. There he was in the water, cold water with no insulation. I was just holding on inside the boat because I didn't get it. Pardon? About 40 minutes, yeah. They are still surprised that we are still alive, and especially me with no fat to keep me warm. He's a little chubby guy, so he had some fat, would survive better. And I lay down in the night and talked to the Lord. I won't tell you all what he told me, but just to give you the experience of it. And out of that dream, there she saw the canoe, the egg, and the two ants, and the egg breaking. Out of it came a vulture. Sister Leach, we came so close to death. It's amazing. So close. And I understood all that was involved in it, and I may very well have looked at that canoe and said, see this? Nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. So there is information in it, and we should always approach it from that point of view rather than from the point of view that is not from God. Because the Lord, as I just showed you, Daniel, will have to modify things to give us information based on where we are and what is happening in this world. So don't approach it negatively. See it as God is giving you information and find out what the Lord is saying to you in any particular dream or vision. All right, it's part of the 7. Most likely, the baker he had his bread on top of his head and the birds picked it out, the interpretation was that he can lose his life because he was negligent. The bread that he had would have been for the Pharaoh. He should supposed to have taken better care of it. The birds picked it out, and Joseph said, "Sir, we're going to lift your head from your body." So vultures taken out would not be a good sign as far as I'm concerned. Death taking the very life from him. Definitely. One more.
Sister Donna, your dream, I'm wondering if it's someone that's close to her and her family.
Which
And
one?
potentially, like maybe someone I'm just giving an example.
What do you mean
She
about,
said she had a dream
what?
about somebody and going into it might be a warning for them.
Yes, I don't know if she forgot the message that I gave to her, somebody for her family, but she may not be paying attention. I'll tell her later. All right, let us pray.